Caffeinated Campaigns podcast, the show where we talk about the most impactful learnings and failures for anyone that touches leads, conversions, and revenue. Today I'm talking to Brett Swenson, VP of Marketing at Kizik. Thanks for talking to me, Brett.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be here with you.
Great. So we have to get started. Give us a good background of who you are, where you came from, what you're doing right now. Let people know who we're listening to.
Yeah, so as you said, right now I'm the VP of Marketing at Kizik. I've been here for about 3.5 years, and we're one of the fastest growing shoe companies in the U.S. right now. So it's been a rocket ship, and we're having fun and really kind of have magic that we're trying to hold on to, bottle up, and continue to keep growing. So before that, I was at one of the fastest growing companies here in Utah and around the country called Purple. Was part of the early marketing team there that took that company from non-existent to a household name within a few years. So part of the kind of the critical high growth period there, where I think we were able to do some really transformative marketing that was really unique to the industry.
It really was, actually. I remember a lot of those commercials and those like Facebook Lives with you dropping things on the mattresses and everything. Were those all your ideas?
No, I wish. No, we had such a rock star team there that be able to be part of that team was so fun. I mean, we had a top 50 Kickstarter campaign. We won Webby Awards, Stevie Awards. It was just such a fun time. Really disrupting an industry that was, really ripe for disruption, that hadn't seen some of that marketing before. And so, we've been able to take some of that playbook and do some of it here at Kizik, and it's been fun to kind of see some of that magic we had at Purple present itself here at Kizik. So yeah, it's just I have I'm a marketer at heart. Have kind of a unique path to get here. I started actually doing portrait photography, so wedding photography and back in the day, and right out of high school, and did that for about 10 years with my brother. And we had the largest studio here in Utah. I think one year we did like 150 weddings. It was insane.
Wow.
So I mean, here in Utah, no one stops for the snow. So you're out in the heat, in the snow, shooting weddings, and learned a lot there, and kind of started marketing early on in my career, just out of necessity. Trying to, that was when Facebook was really early, and trying to, create. That's when you could get some organic traction. So we were, coming up with systems and processes to collab and connect with people online, and so that's kind of where I started figuring out that I probably didn't want to be a photographer for the rest of my life, but the marketing side was really fun, and the psychology behind it. And so it's been an interesting journey to get where I'm at today, and just super grateful for the learnings that I've had along the way.
Man, I actually didn't know that. I started a photographer for 10 years.
Yeah.
Man, that's a hard business right there, man.
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't even own a camera anymore, if that tells you how I feel about it.
Traumatized.
Yeah, just a little bit. My wife's, she always asks me hey, could we do, could we grab a camera and take some pictures of the family? And I'm like, you know what, let's just hire someone, and I'll keep my mouth shut and I'll smile. And anyway, so
I have no opinion. I just don't want to do it.
Pretty much. Yep. So, but it was good. So.
All right, great. So this is what we like to get into is, I like to say, the three most impactful learnings or failures that you've had along the way, that you either wish that you wouldn't have done, or you wish you would have learned quicker, some things that really have shaped who you are as a marketer.
Yeah. Well, the first one actually I want to start with back when I was doing photography, because I think it's applicable to marketing, and so really a bit of a story just to build some context. I had actually, it was early on. So when I first started, I was doing a lot of editing. It was the time when digital was big, and so there was a lot of process and stuff that I built out around, editing these weddings of, 1,000 pictures and, culling down. And anyway, it just kind of, that's where I started. And then I had just kind of moved up and was actually shooting I think it was maybe my first or second wedding all by myself. Um, and those are usually all day events. And so anyway, I was out shooting this wedding, and everything was going well, built up really good rapport. And that's half the battle, of
Yeah.
shooting and doing photography is the rapport you build with a bride and a groom, or the family. And so things are going great. Ended up getting to the reception later that night, and was kind of scrolling through, and you know my camera, looking at some of the pictures, and had noticed that I had shot the whole first half of that wedding with the focus. I don't know if you ever used a digital camera,
Hmm.
a really, portrait nice camera. They have a way that you can kind of you can set your focus to different parts of, the frame. So I had, when you shoot vertical versus horizontal, you can change where you're focused. And I had changed my focus to the very top because I was shooting vertical and getting a shot, and never switched it back. So all of the pictures that I were taking were, the focus was either at the very top
Wow.
or the far right of the image. So as you can imagine, taking group photos, and where you'd have to set your aperture differently. Things were just either out of focus or really really soft. And
Oh.
this is someone's wedding. It's there, and we were a high end business, and so this wasn't just a few $100
Yeah.
price point. And so
There was a
I
comment in there.
yeah, like I had shot this whole wedding, what I felt like was completely out of focus. And my heart sunk. And so I called my brother at the time. I said, hey, this is what happened, what do I do? And he's like, well, how out of focus is it? And I said, I can't really tell. I just know that I had done this. I don't know how long that it had happened. And long story short is, we ended up, I fixed my focusing issue and finished the wedding. And at that time, we would bring them in, weeks later, and come see the photos on a big screen in our office. And I was just praying that, like, you know things would turn out. Luckily, we were able, they weren't as out of focus as I originally thought, but it and it ended up being our highest reorder. Like, at the time, people were printing 30 by 40s of their images and getting albums, and all of
Yeah.
that. It was our highest ordered um, package of all time. They ordered the
Wow.
most pictures,
Hmm.
that which was a few $1,000s of reorders. And so it was just, it was just a really good learning moment for me to understand that, you know invoking emotion and building rapport, and creating an experience that is memorable, is what matters most. Their
Yes.
pictures, luckily they weren't, completely they were all usable and great. They turned out okay, and we were able to use some Photoshop, magic to kind of sharpen them up. But, like, the thought is just that, in marketing and in my career, how you make someone feel and how you can invoke emotion, whether that's through, here at Kizik, we do a lot of video, and one of the things we try and do is invoke some type of emotion, whether that's humor, or um, it's humanizing our brand, or creating a connection to, in our kids' shoes, we try and really promote independence. And if you can create that emotion and create that connection, then that goes so much further than the actual service that you provide, or the product that you're offering. It all kind of lends itself to this experience with your brand, whether you're the brand or your brand as a whole. And I think that was something really critical early on for me to learn is, hey, there's more to it than just delivering your service or your product. It's, the experience along the way that really leads up to it.
I mean, yeah. Thinking about a little bit of psychology. I've been reading articles that say that people will remember an emotion before they remember the actual memory. So you think back 10 years ago, you remember how somebody made you feel, and not
Well,
not what they said.
Yep, 100%. I mean, I think that goes into the way we buy, right? A lot of people are
Yeah.
buying with, for that endorphin rush or,
Yeah.
serotonin hit, is it really about the product? I mean, hopefully, we feel like
Yeah.
that our product is life changing and keeps people coming back. But there's a lot of people, that buy with emotion and that's their trigger. So, and I'm with you, people that you meet and I mean, when you reached out, working with you was one of a great experience I had at Purple, and remembering how far you went above and beyond to help us was something I remember, and I think those things last, like you said, much longer than the data and the numbers that we were crunching at the time.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate
yeah,
it. All right. So what's the next one?
yeah. So there's so many different, I think, things that you can learn along the way, and I've been lucky enough, I think, in my professional career. I mean, that was a pretty big mess up, but to not have something catastrophically go wrong, where it was
Yeah.
just like, but another part of kind of my pre Purple and Kizik time, I actually was doing kind of went out and did some entrepreneurship of um, again in kind of photography space, but we actually built a CRM and a software that would allow us to
Oh.
do high volume school photography. So think
Oh.
about when you send or when you were at school sending your kids to school to get picture day, right? That was
Yeah.
what we were on the other end of that, doing the photography and the fulfillment of that. We built a
Yeah.
software and a CRM that would allow us to go to 5 schools a week, 1,000 to 1,200 kids a day, take all their pictures, attach it to their record, and um, you know just complete the whole process from beginning to end. And during that time, um, there was a series of events that happened that actually we pictures got deleted completely. There was
Ooh.
complete and we pride ourselves, having been in the industry for so long, having backups and triple backing up things. But at the time, it was during the shoot day. Some pictures just got deleted, and they were gone like forever. There was no recovering them on the card. It was just it was a glitch on through the software, and what ended up transpiring, I mean, you can imagine, having lost pictures, going back to the school and saying, hey, we need to reshoot and redo. And that's time out of teachers, their class, and administration was upset. I mean, it was really, really hard. But one of the things that, I learned from that was just the accountability side of it, having to go up and own that and go talk to these principals or heads of school and just say, hey, here's what happened. Um, here's kind of what we're proposing, and getting yelled at and getting, people just frustrated. And I mean, just, you have to just own all of it. We just had to say,
Yeah.
you're right. And so I think that's just something that I've learned in life and in my career is, being accountable, whether things are your fault or it's a software issue or it's something out of your control. You're at the end of the day accountable for it. And having to own that has taught me, one, to not make those mistakes again, but two, you know I am accountable for the things that I put my name on. And I think that's just important for us all to remember, rather than shifting the blame, especially being in a leadership role. Trying to shift that blame to someone else or somewhere else, it ultimately comes to you. And I think that ultimately makes you a better person, and people can see that in your character when you're accountable for things that go wrong, and you're willing to fix them and make it better. I think that's a important life lesson, but also just in business, as a whole, being accountable to the things that you say you're going to do, and making them right. So yeah, that was another hard time and a hard lesson to learn, but really grateful for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would agree. Like I remember I sent an email out back before I had the things in place to properly check emails. Like 100,000 people didn't have a coupon code in it. It was supposed to have a coupon code. And everybody was just like, I got half the list, responded back. And, I sent it out, I scheduled it, and it went about my business.
Yeah.
And of course, like I said, hey, I sent it to the client. The client was supposed to look at it and say, like, hey, this is good. But ultimately, I sent the email. No matter
Yeah.
who I asked to check it, and, like you said, my name was on it. And like you said, I got to step up. It's like, hey, you know what? The email went out. I made a mistake. Let's come up with the solution. There's really no point in going back and forth. Like, who did this? Who did that? Who should have done this? Like, we need to get this out. We need to recover. And surprisingly, being accountable, one, client may respected me more, but two, that was one of our biggest sales
Yeah.
that we had through the email, because they had two touch points.
Yeah.
Like, boom, the first one, and then the second one, like, hey, oops, because that's something people don't normally see the email. What was the oops?
Yep.
So
No, 100%. Actually, that was, I've done that before too. My career's been in, email marketing automation. And I think inevitably that happens to every email marketer, that you send something wrong, the subject line. And I think it also, it's good to remember. I'm pretty, I'm pretty careful and have, checks in place, but sometimes it happens. You miss something. And I think you realize life goes on. And two, I think the fact that, you're able to kind of send a follow-up email, there's something to that. I think that creates or puts some humanity and puts a face to the brand a little bit. Like, hey, we screwed up. We're sorry. And we're not robots over here. Like, we're real humans behind the brand. And I think that's refreshing for people too, to see that, people want to look behind the scenes a little bit and understand who you are. I saw the same thing. The follow-up email performed really well because people wanted to see, what happened. And there's also a bit of grace. They're like, oh yeah, I've been there, or I can relate. And it ends up becoming, a connector to your brand, rather than people, what you initially think is like, oh my gosh, they're going to think we're the worst and we suck at our jobs and how could we let this happen? But it oftentimes goes the other way. So, I've been there.
I mean, you made a good point there. Like, at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we're all trying to make connections. And people like to remember that, hey, there are humans making connections to other humans. And I found that the more people talk about personalization all the time, but when you humanize what's happening, folks, it's like, when they humanize a dog, they make a connection to it, like, oh, this is part of the family, whatever. It's like, when you humanize anything, whether it be email or brand or whatever, people look at it in a different light. And if you're always perfect and to a T and whatnot, people don't see, they really think you're ingenuine.
Yeah. Well, I think, you look at the rise of UGC, right? And that type of content. And I think now we're seeing it get a little bit, feels a little fake, but the rise of UGC and kind of seeing people in a raw, authentic state, was a big part of that, right? People were sick of kind of traditional ads, and, how often do we see something and within the first couple of seconds you're turned off because it feels like an ad. You feel like you're being marketed to. And I think, being able to, again, just be human and be relatable and be real. I think that's exactly why, some of the best performing ads that we've done, are UGC, right? They're people in real life environments showing off the product and demonstrating, human qualities versus, just a checklist of features and benefits. It's, hey, here's how this is applied every day in my life. And, oh, that's just like me. I have a dog at home, or I have kids, or I have, whatever that is. It's really easy to put yourself in those shoes and say, okay, I can see how that product would really help me. And so I think it's just important that we don't lose that, and we don't, like I mentioned, I think some of the UGC content now feels very scripted, and you're like, okay, I can tell that was an ad. And so I think as long as you find that balance and continue to be authentic, then it goes a long way. So I think it's a big one.
Yeah, man.
I know, email trauma.
Email trauma. Speaking of trauma, I remember the first time I pressed send on 1 million outbound. I was freaking out. Nothing went wrong, but it's like you're about to send an email to 1 million people.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, and think about, now with text, I mean,
Yeah.
pushing the send
Oh
button on a
man.
text, I mean, that's even more direct to someone's phone. I mean,
Yeah.
if you, being on Shopify, and then, you know, I've been, running our email and SMS here for a long time, while we've been growing, and sending a text out and seeing your numbers just like immediately jump within 30 seconds is just like, it's humbling, and it's also amazing to see like you have that kind
Yeah.
of reach, instantaneous reach. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's a little bit of that anxiety that when you hit that send button, like, oh man, okay, I hope the link still works. And
Yeah.
that never goes away. I mean, I probably have sent several hundred emails and texts, and it never goes away for me. I think it's lessened over time, but it's still a little bit of a, here we go, fire
Yeah.
away type of thing. So,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
good. Maybe it's good for us. I don't know. Keep, so,
Because things like if we get too comfortable, if we start
yeah.
getting reckless with these sends, we might be, especially on the SMS side.
Uh, yep.
Yeah.
That's where you run into some trouble. But,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
All right.
yeah,
All right.
I guess on to the next. One of the, this one, I don't know if it's necessarily a mistake or a big oops, but something that I just wish that I would have learned earlier on in my
Yeah.
career is just, and I think it's one of the simple things that maybe gets overlooked, but just strategic planning, or planning in advance. I think, I've been part of two of the fastest growing companies, and those high growth periods, you're constantly, pivoting and moving, and things are on the fly, and part of that's really fun and exciting. I actually love that. I love growing and building brands, and being scrappy, and a lot
Yeah.
of times that comes down to last minute execution.
Yeah.
There you're kind of, you know half an hour before you launch a new product or something, you're still tweaking something, and you're like, all right, I hope it's good enough. And you send it out the door, and there's kind of an adrenaline rush to that. And you feel this like, man, we did it, by the skin of our teeth. And um,
Yeah.
I think, that like, to be honest with you, that the first 2.5 year, I mean, we're still doing some of that, but that was a big part of Kizik. I mean, it was just this scrappy team that we had, that we were, trying to keep up with growth, and it was what it was. But I think that what I've learned is, as we've started to build a bigger team, and, there's different personalities, and as you bring people on, like, if you continue to um, not plan in advance and really put those systems and tools and plans in place, um, it really leads to burnout, and it leads to um, chemistry on your team declining, and
Yeah.
just the culture that I think we have here at Kizik, and that I've been a part of, is truly special. And that's really important for me as a leader on our team, to keep and continue to build. Um,
Yeah.
that we've just had to shift, and you know for me, the doing and the seeing things come together is really exciting. And the planning sometimes is like, oh, we have to stop. You almost have to take a step back and
Yeah.
pause, and that's sometimes hard when you're growing and everything's exciting. But that is, you know we've all heard it, before, that if you're not planning, you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think it's just, you lose that a little bit. And so that's one thing that I wish that, being part of Purple and now Kizik, where, it was so fast paced that, taking a step back, it's okay to pause and take a step back, and put some plans in place, and get people on the same page, so that, you avoid some of those, um, that burnout, or you get that adrenaline spike, and then you kind of, you crash a little bit, and you're like, man, I got I'm so exhausted from that launch or whatever that was, because you probably could have saved yourself a few steps, by just taking a few hours, um, taking a day, taking a beat to really plan that out and get everyone on the same page. So, that's been
Yeah. I
a
mean,
big one to learn.
yeah, I would definitely agree with that and echo that. One thing that I would add to it, which is probably just implied, but I want to say it, is that having things that are written down, because there's been so many times where I've gone into planning sessions and we talk about something, nobody, writes down or
Yeah.
what we learned, write down the minutes, come back and we plan the same thing over again. Like, didn't we talk about this last time? But people have short memories, they're busy, something else happens, and we got to plan the same thing over and over again. So have a plan and write it down.
Oh, I'm with you. Yep. I've been part of those meetings where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're talking about this again, and it's really, you know, on me, or on us to make sure those things are written down and planned, and that still happens. But yeah, I think that's really critical to document, especially for process sake too. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of what we do in our team, once you find a successful formula or a plan, I mean, you're recreating it and finding ways to improve, but it's still kind of from this base core, business execution, so being able to document that along the way really allows for, um, you almost to create those, whether kind of project management system you're in, you can have those templates and recreate
yeah,
them and start from so much further ahead than saying, okay, we have to think through this again, and what are the assets needed, and who,
yeah,
when, where, all of that. And so I think that's a big one for just saving sanity and time, and
yeah,
optimizing it, especially when you're growing a company. People's time, is money, and being scrappy with that is really important, and frugal with your time and money. And so those are all things that I think maybe you don't think of as money and cost savings, but they really are, at
yeah.
the end of the day. So
Because like if you pay somebody a salary, you pay them hourly. Every second that's ticking by, that's a cent, or $1 or $100 depending on the person. So you got to keep track of that.
yep, 100%.
Man, so Brett, this was awesome. This was awesome. What I always like to wrap it up with a bit more of a personal question, and I like to ask people if you knew you only had 3 years to live, what would you want to accomplish professionally and personally?
Yeah, it's a good question. um 3 years. For me, I think, professionally, I've been able to do a lot of, really fun and unique things, and uh, be a part of some fast, growing companies. But really, just, and I can honestly say, where I'm at with Kizik, I'm super happy and content in the way that I'm not seeking, additional gratification. But just,
Yeah,
I would just continue to enjoy, um, the process, and, you know, I would take more probably big swings at things that maybe are in the back of, my head of wouldn't be cool. Like a Super Bowl commercial is something that I really would love to be a part of. And so,
yeah,
making something like that happen, taking some big swings, where they may feel like, um, you're not quite ready for them, or you don't quite know how to do it. Take some of those, and just do some big things that have kind of been on my bucket list in my professional career. Um, but I'd say more importantly than that, it really goes to my personal life. I mean,
yeah,
I love to golf. I have 3 kids, that are pretty young, and I don't have a ton of time to golf. But I'd find a way to really, spend some time getting better at golf. I don't know that you can become good at golf, but that's something just
yeah,
from a personal, kind of a selfish hobby standpoint. I'd love to just spend, you know a bunch of time just really getting good at a game that is really challenging. I think that really motivates me, and but even more so than that, I think it would just be, there are times when I look at my kids, and just spending and soaking up the time that I have with them now. That would be the biggest thing, and my wife, just spending time with my family, making memories. I think going back to what we talked about, finding those emotions and memories that, creating core memories, as people,
yeah,
are at coin now. That's where I'd spend the majority of my time, is just creating those, and because, you can take those with you, and always have those. And so
yeah,
I'm in the stage right now where my kids are young, and there are times when I get home and, like, oh boy, like after a long day, and they're ready to, but really soak those in, and remember those times where they say cute, things, or they want to go and wrestle or whatever it is. I mean, I think those are the
yeah.
things that really matter in life. and that's where I think the most gratification I've ever gotten has come from. So yeah, I think those would be the things I'd spend time on.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you again for your time, Brett, and joining us, and help everybody enjoy this as much as I do. And we'll see you next time on Caffeinated Campaigns.
Thanks, Doug.